Come in. Oh, man. We had a pretty nasty windstorm that came through. Actually, took my dock right out of the water and flipped it upside down. I had to come up and get the barrels and stuff. We'll have to get that repaired. Come on, Chiva. Get in here. Now, it's dark in here. See if that damn squirrel's in here. I got this ninja squirrel that likes to live in my barn. He scares the crap out of you. And the little sucker has actually ate right around the nails. Chewed up most of this, but I caught and dispatched one of them. Just got to finish getting that little guy. Oh, I just heard him. He's on the move, Sheba. Oh, she's on him. Hope she gets him. So I guess first thing we gotta see if the tractor starts. It's been sitting here all winter. Turn the fuel on. Alright, let's see. Hey there, viewers, and welcome back to the Self-Made Auto Channel. I'm glad to see the tractor started. The Jeep, I believe the starter is going bad. Now, that's a big fat guess. I'm not just going to wing one in it. We got to test it. Hopefully can figure out if it's the starter. We should be able to. I'm surprised that it started, so it's been broke in my driveway for some time. I just haven't had time to fix it. Was debating whether to get the trailer and take it to the shop and all that stuff, but I thought we could go old school. However, I did need some concrete, so I come up here to my cabin, pulled the tractor out, we got the Jeep in. The problem is it cranks really, really slow. It typically doesn't start, but it sounds like the starter. You can hear it moaning and groaning. Once I got it started, I didn't shut it off because I couldn't believe it started, so I thought we'd pull it up here. We'll get in, I'll see if it cranks. Oh, see, now it's not too bad. I tell you what, this winter, man, you'd get this thing a little bit warm and it would not crank. Yeah, it's still cranking super slow. Let's try one more time here. Let me see if it's got a clear flood mode. Nope, apparently not. Sorry about all the beeping. Well, it's going to make a liar out of me. Now, I intended on using my little DIY home multimeter, but it does not have a min-max setting on it to do a voltage drop. Well, frankly, Sheba can't crank the key for me. So I have another alternative. I think we're going to do. I probably could have just grabbed one of my half a dozen meters at the shop. Now I see that somebody has done some fancy stuff here with the negative battery cables. They're lead. I mean, they look okay. Starter lives right down there where you can't see it. Unfortunately, there's no lighting here. We will do something to get some lighting. See what we can do. First thing first, it's mid-April and it's only about 30 out right now. My hands are gonna be freezing. I'm gonna get a fire started. Fire's going. We will see. We'll do the best we can here. I grabbed Big Larry. It's a light I had in my truck. I don't remember where I got this little guy, but she's pretty bright. And it has a magnet. So hopefully we can see. So this is a 650 cold cranking amp battery. I did grab the carbon pop tester from work. Remember to grab that. Why on earth I didn't grab a good meter, I don't know. We will make sure that we can pull at least 325 amps out of it while keeping it hopefully above 10 volts. Let's see, currently we are at, well, just under 13 volts. And it's been sitting for a little while, so we're, probably the 12.6. Our goal here is 325 amps. And hopefully stay above, 9 or 9.5 volts, I would think. So there's 350 amps. We're holding a good steady 10 volts. And then we bounce back almost at 13 volts, about 12.5, somewhere in there. So that's good. We know our battery is good. That's a good baseline. What we can do is crank it, make sure that it's charging, which I assume it is. I've never had any problem with it after it's been running. We are charging about 14.5 volts. Well, it only dropped down to 11. Gosh, I wish this was acting up still, because it was, like I say, once it gets cold, let's say, down around 10 or 0 or so, the starter would just hum, just barely crank over. Then it would start, and then you get about mid warmed up, it would work okay. And then as soon as you got the starter hot, like if you went out and if we were out trail riding or ripping donuts in the field or something like that, then that was it. The starter would not crank. With that being said, when that's happening, I have a couple concerns. One, is the battery junk. Now I still had my meter in there, and that's one thing I did check when it was cold, was, put my meter on there, crank it. It wasn't drawing, excessive amperage or there wasn't excessive voltage loss at the battery, indicating, a high amperage draw on the starter, either from, a faulty starter motor or, mechanical problem with the engine, indicating, hey, this thing's giving it full beans, it's dropping the battery down to 6 volts, and, that's that. I was a little concerned seeing the, the ground wires here have been repaired, prior to me purchasing this. So my next concern is the battery cables going to the starter, the ground to the starter. Do they have the capacity to carry, the 150 or the 200 amps needed to crank the engine over? And the way you typically will do that is just with a voltage drop test. However, I don't. My meter has really short leads. It's just a little, $18 meter for a home. I don't have alligator clips where I can clip it on and, stick it up by the window and crank it and verify voltage drop, power side and ground side. So what I'm going to do is what we'll often do in our videos where, we have a component that's failed. We want to make sure wire integrity is good as you substitute a load. In this case, we have the carbon pile tester here, and that's going to be the substituted load for our starter, because now, we can't just put a light bulb in place. It only draws 4 amps on a, essentially 100 plus amp circuit. So what I did is I've got our carbon pile tester hooked right to the starter, the battery cable on the starter and the actual starter case. You have to be careful doing this. You don't want to just hook your ground to the battery, because that won't tell you if the circuit's good. If you hook it to the block, maybe. Your best bet is to go right to the starter, because that's where it grounds, on the starter housing, on the starter solenoid stud where the battery cable hooks up. And we should be able to crank this up to, I'm going to be, if I see 150 amps, voltage stays up, I'm going to call it good. I don't know what size, maybe 4 gauge cable. It's not a very heavy cable going down. But like I say, if we pull 150 amps, voltage stays where it should, we're going to call it. Come here, Big Larry. So down there, that's where I'm hooked up, guys, right on the starter solenoid, power and ground. Hopefully you guys can see that. Hard to tell through the camera here. And then what we will do, you can see we're at, lighting here kind of sucks, doing the best I can. We are at almost 13 volts, so battery's fully charged. Let's get out of the glare, see if we can't, see what happens here when we start to apply a load. There's 150 amps, 10 volts. There's 200 amps, still above 9. We're going to make the call. The starter circuit, its ability to carry current to the starter is good. I feel confident now replacing the starter. I did buy the cheapest starter available on the Rock Auto. Wow, came with a full spec sheet. Hopefully it is the right one, because I bought it quite a while ago. Looks like it is held on with 2 bolts. Oh, I bought a brand new one. Wow, TYC. Appears to be right. Looks like the right connector. 1 bolt from the bottom sits in there. About like this. This is up. 1 bolt comes through from there. And this one must go through to the tranny. And that brings up the other dilemma. I don't have much for tools here. Check on this Sheba. How you doing, Miss Sheba, huh? How's the fire going? Is she ripping and roaring yet? Oh yeah, she's cooking now. You wanna come out here? Huh? It's not a 10. So what's that? I don't have an 11, so let's try 7/16. There we go. Close enough, anyways. Unhook the negative battery cable. Safety first. We're going to see if we can get the starter wire, or the battery positive, unhooked from the solenoid here. Everything's nice and greasy because it's a 4-liter. They're not usually very well potty trained, so there ain't no oil under them. There ain't no oil in them. Unhook that. Stick that up there.
locking that. It appears that there is. Get a screwdriver. There's a little red lock in that tab. Not anymore, baby. There's our solenoid. So we'll hold that up. Set our battery cable all the way. Make sure you unhook the battery when you do this, or sparks will fly. Potentially could, anyways. I think we gotta go underneath it. That sucks. I need a lift. Let's see. Hopefully they're 15. Oh, a little stick stuck in there. Let's see. Are they 15? Well, it'd help if I wasn't trying to tighten it, I guess. That feels like they're smaller than that. Probably 9/16. Let's see. Get some leverage here. I gotta get a short socket so I can tweak on this thing. Try this again. There we go, it feels better. I think it's a 9/16. Yes! I should have brought a cordless ratchet or something. All miscombobulated here, laying on the ground, don't know a way to turn it. There we go. There's one. Looks like it survived. Just a little muddy. Let's see, and then there's one right straight up at the top. Hopefully we can get it with. Oh man, this is tough. I'm sorry, guys. Oh, that one looks like it might be a different size. Let's see what we got here. It's a 9/16. This one looks like it might be a 5/8 or a 15. Whatever. I only grabbed 2 sockets, so. Oh, yeah. Yes. Sure. That one feels quite a bit tighter. So yeah, the threads are coming with it. Or it's Loctite on it. Oh, there it goes. It's got real loose all of a sudden. What's that mean? Oh, I think the starter's loose. Let's see. I'm gonna have to move you. This is perhaps the worst bit of photography I've ever done. Because you can't see anything. However, the starter is out. I don't even know what's in the viewfinder. And I'll go grab the new one. I think all you could probably see is the exhaust pipe. My apologies. I'll put you up top. It's cold, hard. Let's see. That wouldn't be bad if I had 4 jack stands. Maybe. Get it jacked up, use a creeper, have some electricity and a light. You know, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to try to get it. It has to go through that shroud. We'll wiggle it. There we go. Don't draw it in, you know, make sure it fits flush. I'll get the bolt started here. Top one's threading in nice and easy. There we go. Find the bottom bolt. Of course, you can't see nothing, can you? just assume I put the bolts in, okay? It's actually a pretty easy starter to change without a lift. You can't ask for much easier. 2 bolts you can see. Well, the hard part's done. You guys are right in the perfect spot. Get these washers off here. There's that one. Get our battery cable. Washer's back on. You gotta be careful with these studs. Now these things are pretty fragile. So don't be stupid. See, watch it snap it off. So don't, you know, don't go cranking on that 13th is the right size, but close enough. And while I was down underneath the little fella, I did find the red lock. Yeah, I did. Am I gonna put it back in? Probably not. I'm gonna be able to figure out how to put this back in. Hopefully. What in the heck there, fella? Notches up top. Oh, you best not be bending that frickin' pin over there, because I did not have a mirror and I cannot see in there. Lines right up. I gotta move the camera here. So I had to fiddle with that guy a little bit. I ended up putting the red lock back in it, and because, so, let me show you how this thing hooks up. So it has the that little claw, you know, when you push the connector on and it catches on that tab. Now I've noticed on some aftermarket stuff sometimes that tab is located, you know, slightly different than the OE, or it's a little different size. So when I was pushing it in, it was hooking, but if I pulled back on it hard enough, it would come unhooked. However, when I put the red lock in there, it would hold, you know, the corresponding half of this down, and I could tug on it pretty hard without it coming unhooked. But you have to be careful because that is just a single spade in there. My fear was I was bending it over, which that would suck because I'd have to pull the starter back out to see it. Now, if you don't want this connection, just cut it off on your Jeep, you know, undo that bolt, put an eyelet on it, and then just put it on the solenoid that way. I see this is likely the original starter. So that's pretty good because I think this thing's like a 01, if I remember correctly. Or, no, I think it's a 99. I don't know what year it is. In either case, the negative battery is hooked back up. I think I tightened it down. Oh, ho, ho, that sounds way better, fella. Oh yeah, much nicer. I'm happy with that. And that, folks, is that. Sorry about the poor photography. Not much room. And with this camera, the way the lens is, it's kind of funky when you got to get up close to stuff. Should have grabbed my other little handy cam that works better, but it is what it is. You get the gist of it. A couple bolts verifying that the starter is the culprit. Now, I wish that I could have gotten this to act up like it was when it was, you know, quite a bit colder out or extremely hot, but frankly, I didn't want to drive it around to get it smoldering hot. That is a pretty common time that starters will fail, is, you know, the extremes, extreme cold, but also extreme heat. You know, when they're exposed to heat, of course, the thing's soaked with oil and everything else. Not a big surprise. However, I did want to use the carbon pile tester to verify that
you know, those cables and the ground, you know, from the battery to the block and from the block to the starter was good prior to just, you know, winging a starter in it. I mean, it wasn't overly expensive. I think that starter was like 50 or 60 bucks, but if I didn't need it, you know, I didn't want to use it, even though I already bought it. And that's that. So questions, comments, criticisms, concerns, put them in the comment box below. Be on the lookout for the next video coming up on the Jeep. We have to change a power steering pressure line that's peeing pretty good on it. Probably pop that up here on the screen for you. And just remember, viewers, if I can do it, you can do it. Thanks for watching.